What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the neighborhood. My name is Dylan Wren, and joining me today is Andrew Kimball. How are you, Andrew?
Doing fantastic, Dylan. How about you?
Doing well. So, today we are talking about Hades, which you probably knew, I guess, from clicking on this video and reading the title of it. It's hopefully titled something that makes sense. But in case you aren't familiar with what Hades is, or you think that this is like about us deep diving into Greek mythology and the god Hades rather than the video game Hades, I guess there is a lot of Greek mythology in this game. Hades is a roguelike action dungeon crawler video game that was developed by Supergiant Games. It originally released for Windows, PC, and Switch, I guess, back in September of 2020. I think it was in early access for a couple of years before that. It later came to PlayStation consoles, Xbox consoles in August of 2021. So in it, you play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, as he attempts to escape from the underworld to reach Mount Olympus. At times, aided by gifts bestowed on him from other Olympians, each run challenges the player through a random series of rooms populated with enemies and rewards. The game has a hack-and-slash combat style. The player uses a combination of their main weapon attack, a special weapon, and a dash, and a magic ability to defeat enemies while avoiding damage to progress as far as possible. While Zagreus will often die, the player can use gain treasure to improve certain attributes and unlock new weapons, abilities, and improve your chances of escaping on future runs. So, we are going to give our thoughts on the game. We are going to talk about some things that we like about it. Then we're going to talk about a few things that maybe we wish were a little bit different. And then we're going to give our tier list ranking. So, without further ado, let's jump into some things that we liked about this game. Andrew, what's something you liked about Hades?
Man, what a question. This is a fantastic game, but I guess I'll start with kind of the most personal to me thing, I guess, that I liked about it was that this game kind of opened me up to a whole nother genre of video games, because up to this point I had maybe dabbled in a few kind of indie games, top down, like they weren't my favorite, and I also had not really found a roguelite, or whichever term you want to use, that had really grabbed me or really shown me like, why do people like these? What is the hook? What am I missing? And then Hades came out and I picked it up, gave it a shot, and got hooked. And there are a lot of reasons for that I'm sure we're going to get into, but really, like, everything just came together in this game as the whole package, and it just was enough to make me want to keep playing to the point where I finally understood. And I think a lot, like, the kind of the first initial pull was the story and the characters. It's like, even if you fail a run, which I did a lot early on, you're still getting narrative rewards, and you're still getting story rewards and things like that make you want to keep playing and pull you through a little bit more, and make you want to try again even if you fail a run. And then that got me to the point where I was playing enough runs that I started realizing how, like, permanent upgrades and stuff worked, some of the things that are more like staples of that genre, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get it now.
No, I 100% agree. So I'd played stuff like Slay the Spire or FTL, and so those games, you kind of have you kind of create the narrative as you go through that. There's not really like an overarching story that goes along with it. And so this, I feel like, really kind of took me in as well, because it was like, oh, okay, I'm dying, and even though, like, I'm okay playing these other roguelites that don't have like an overarching narrative, I like that that's baked into this game at the core, because even when I die, it makes me want to be like, oh, I want to do another run now because I want to see more of the story. I want to do more of this stuff. Versus like a lot of other roguelites where it was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna hop on, do my one quick run, and I'm done, because like it's going to be the same thing. Like there's no real progression oftentimes in a lot of those, at least the ones that I was playing.
Right.
And I think this really sort of takes it to the next level by having interesting characters and that story that kind of evolves as you go through the game, because death is expected. It's kind of, they know you're going to die a bunch, and so they built that into the game as a mechanic, which I appreciated.
For sure. Yeah.
And as you're doing it too, you're doing it in such just like a beautiful world. Like the style of this world, the animations, the just the different levels of Hades, or the underworld, like they all look so unique and cool, and all the characters are just very interesting aesthetically. So
yeah, that's what I was just thinking, was not only were you being pulled along by this story, but there were so many other things there to back up the experience and make it like such a stellar experience, where like the world and the level looks great. The game feels amazing to play. It's tight. It's responsive. There's it's a joy to play. There's so many varieties of like weapons and things that you unlock that you can find something that you like and just stick to it and power through and be like, you know what, this is my bread and butter. I got this. I'm gonna make this my main weapon. Or you can do what I did and just be like, ooh, I kind of want to try this thing out now. Oh, I just unlocked this weapon. Let me try that out. And so the experimentation was a lot of fun. And then not only do those weapons unlock, but then you unlock different ways to use them. And so not only was there just a really cool story, but it was like everything else gameplay wise backed it up to where it wasn't this thing where, oh, the story is cool, let me just go out on another run and try to see how I do so I can get more story. It was like when I was in the run, like I was still having fun. I was having a good time. It felt really good to play.
Yeah. I like that you brought up like the variety of weapons, because I did really enjoy like all of the different weapons. Some I didn't use a whole lot. I tended to like stick mostly to the spear. But I appreciated that even at its base form, like if you chose the spear, you knew kind of what you were getting, you knew kind of the moves, you knew kind of how that was going to go, and you could look for, the sort of random upgrades along the way that could completely change your run on you. But at the end of the day, like there was some consistency in the fact that like, okay, I chose the spear, or I chose the bow, or I chose the sword. It wasn't as random as some other roguelites can be, like Dead Cells, where it's just kind of like you can kind of pick from a couple of things right at the beginning, but those are kind of randomized a little bit, and then your entire run is basically just random. Like it's hard to control for some of that, versus like Hades, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna choose the weapon that I like the most, and then I hope I get like Zeus's upgrade or Aphrodite's upgrade or whatever. But even if I don't, like, I still like the feel of this weapon. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is one of the ways that they made this game more accessible in a way. But then they also had like actual legitimate accessibility kind of features, difficulty features that were available in this game that I definitely took advantage of. They had their, I think they called it like God mode or whatever, where when you would die, your damage and your health went up a percentage.
Yeah, it's something that I think basically every game should incorporate. Every game that's a single player game at the very least. But it's, when you would die, you would get a little bit more health, or do a little bit more damage and take a little bit less damage.
That's right.
And it wasn't it wasn't like a drastic jump. It was like, a percent each time.
It was like 1% or like 2%. Yeah, it was pretty little, but after, however many runs, it does add up. And I think it maxes out at a certain point too.
I think so. I'm not 100% on that because I don't think I maxed it out.
No,
but it was one that's like, it's just such a good feature because it's like, that makes 100% sense. Where it's like, they added it because, hey, we want people to experience this game. We want them to like finish this game. There's a story. We want them to be able to experience it. And so it's like, death is in the game, so we can't just let you blow through it in one take.
Exactly.
So we're gonna slowly turn it up so that like as you keep going, like not only are you hopefully getting better at the game, but it's kind of like a dynamic difficulty almost, where it like adjusts up to where you need it, and then you're good and you can beat the game that way. So like if Elden Ring or something would put that in, so many more people would get to experience that cool game. I don't know why this isn't just standard in a single player game, honestly.
Yeah, and it's optional, so it's like you don't have to use it if you don't want to. And I think they found a really cool way to walk that line between giving you some help, but not like doing an actual literal God mode where you're like just destroying anything in your path and nothing can touch you, and just like kind of taking the core heart and soul of what this game is supposed to be out of the experience. It was kind of like a really good little like middle ground right there that they found.
Yes, 100%. Any other things that we need to mention that we really enjoyed and liked?
The music in this game was fantastic.
Yes.
Supergiant always has pretty good music. I mean, that's one of the things that they're known for, but the soundtrack of this game was just at a base level really cool. But you talked about like dynamic difficulty. The dynamic music was really cool too. It'd be like certain points, like if you're just kind of walking around or whatever, it would just be like the bass line to the track, and then you would get into a fight or get into a certain kind of room, and all of a sudden that full track would kick in, or like you would know which kind of room you had entered or where you were because you'd get a certain like sound cue. And I mean, I'm playing this thing on the Switch, and handheld you don't really get that full experience without headphones, but like whenever I put it into the TV, it was like, dang, they really went there. And then because the music was so good, I went and actually like looked it up and listened to a little bit of it outside of the game, and it's like this soundtrack, it was incredible. It was definitely worthy of all the praise it has gotten since this game has come out.
Yes. And you mentioning the handheld mode makes me just, this is maybe not as much about Hades as it is the Switch, but like it was such a good game to just like play on the go, play like you said, very fun, very cool. It looked great on the big screen, like when you could have your surround sound like pumping out the music and everything. But it was also like, it was probably outside of Animal Crossing the first time that I really like took my Switch and used it a lot handheld mode, because up until that point I kind of didn't use that feature on the Switch a whole lot, and so it made like it was just the right length where it wasn't like I was hunched over looking at my Switch trying to like get comfortable for too long. Right. I could do a run and finish it and put it down and be like, yes, that was great, I like that. So like I said, that might be more on the Switch than it is Hades, but I appreciate that they made a game that felt very good to play handheld as well as like on the big screen, to the point where when it came out on Xbox, I didn't really feel like playing it on my big screen. I was like, I kind of wish I could just like have this on the go if I wanted it.
Right.
So with that's been a lot of praise for Hades, and that's not uncommon. I think it was one of the darlings of 2019, 2020. So shouldn't be a surprise that we gave it a lot of praise. But was there anything that we didn't like or wished was maybe a little bit different?
Man, I was kind of struggling to come up with things that I thought were not good about this game. And I mean, there's some nitpicks where, maybe it'd be nice if they guided newer players a little bit easier on like synergy of items and like how like the maybe best builds and stuff like that. But I mean, if you play the game long enough, A, you're gonna figure that stuff out, or B, you're gonna maybe go look up a guide to kind of get a little bit of a leg up on like, okay, what like basic ideas do I need to have going into a run? And so like I think
which boons pair well together.
Right. And I think in general, like even if you don't know a lot of that stuff, you can just blindly run through and get pretty far, still having a good time.
Yeah.
I think that really the only thing that kind of bugged me and kept me from actually like seeing the true ending was just how many runs you had to do and actually successfully beat Hades at the end. It got to the point where when I successfully beat him a couple times, that was when I kind of put the game down for other games and never came back. It wasn't that I was having a bad time or was frustrated. It was just like, cool, I feel like I've gotten closure. I feel like I've reached the end of this game. And so when something else comes out and I pick that up and then, kind of Hades goes to the wayside, I think that was part of the reason where it's like, if they had given me more of that story stuff up front from like the initial few runs and then had like maybe an end game or like a post game thing for the hardcore players that wanted to keep running it, that would have maybe been a better way for me. But I don't think that they necessarily did anything wrong. It's just like for me, I never like saw the true ending because I never committed to that amount of successful runs. But I mean, that's pretty light in all the praise we've given it. I don't know if you have anything else that you can nitpick about this game.
Yeah, because that was probably my biggest one, and it wasn't necessarily something that I thought was bad. It was more so just like for me personally, like I get into a game and then like eventually like hyperfixate on a different game, and so like I beat Hades a couple of times, got like the first ending, but then was like something else distracted me, and I have never really gone back to like finish all of the runs that are necessary. So like the end game did go a little bit long, which if you were super into the game and like wanted it, awesome. For me, I got to like I beat Hades the couple of times necessary to get like the first ending, and I was like, that feels good, like I know there's some more like a little bit of an unresolved storyline for Zagreus and his mom or whatever, but like I felt good where I ended. I felt like that completed it. And honestly, if the Minotaur and Theseus fight was not as annoying to me, I probably would have beaten Hades more, because that really felt like where the make or break part was for me. Was that fight. It just annoyed me. It's kind of like an Ornstein and Smaug sort of thing from Dark Souls, where it's like two bosses at once. Once you defeat one, the other one gets a little bit stronger. And anytime that there's like two big bosses on screen, it can be kind of just challenging. Not that I'm opposed to a challenge, I enjoy it, but that one more than any other just kind of felt like it was kind of just cheap. So I didn't enjoy that fight, and I felt like I ended up using a bunch of like Death Defiance, and that felt like a waste, because the boss that I really wanted to fight was Hades, and he, to me anyway, was a much easier fight, and had more bearing on like the story and everything. So
yeah, I didn't think that fight was easy, but I just thought Hades was rough. Like Hades, I never got him down to where I felt confident going into that fight. But yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the part of this review where we are going to put it in our tier ranks. Andrew, what tier would you put this game at?
For me, this game is easily an A. And I think the only reason that it's not S tier is because I reserve S tier for those games that like are really meaningful to me on a level outside of just their quality. You know, like they have some sort of an emotional or, you know, some sort of other thing or other factor that comes into play that is not necessarily just based on the pure like quality of the game itself. Because this game, like we said throughout this review, is like there's not a lot to complain about. I mean, it's high quality from any angle you look at it, and so, you know, for that reason, definitely an A for me.
For myself, I would rank it at an A tier. It is a extraordinarily fun game. It made me use the Switch in handheld mode as one of the first times since like Animal Crossing. It is a very solid roguelite type of game that incentivizes you to keep playing it even if you're having some trouble with it. It has a very innovative god mode in it, so that even if you are struggling and this isn't normally your game but you like the theme and you really want to play it, it allows you to experience the story and not just steamroll through everything, but it makes enemies weaker, makes you stronger bit by bit, so you still get that feeling of progression, and it kind of finds the right level for you. The weapons are all a blast, the music is awesome, the game itself plays like a dream, and I can't recommend it enough, so check it out. Alright, if you have found this review helpful, go ahead, leave us a like, maybe subscribe if you aren't, and if you also enjoyed Hades, let us know what you thought about it in the comments. But with that, I will leave you with a reminder to
Stay friendly, gamers.